Welcome, faraway friends. Thank you for joining me. Angel, the storyteller for Darkeport. And this series is going to be, these videos are going to be a little longer, a little more in-depth perhaps, than the GM Journey videos had been. Still rocking the 2012 YouTube situation with my non-existent editing skills, God help you. And I wanted to kind of give my first pass on a bunch of different archetypes. So in the lead up to Gen Con, the initial tranche is going to be a dozen. I'm not sure what order I'm going to put them in. I listed the ones that I had in mind in Discord, and those are pretty firm, but I'm playing with the order and kind of wanting to one to build on the other. I'm also going to be throwing in specific terms that I think are useful for storytellers who are looking for a more in-depth and dare I say nuanced world and characters, dynamics, etc., which are kind of the hallmark that I strive for in my own style. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but for those of you who do want to kind of dig in and get those psychological, political, historical layers going on in your universe, hopefully these are of service. Ultimately, this is what I'm doing this whole thing for, is to be of service and to get these ideas out. You know, the whole my mantra of better stories, better humans, really do believe that. So here we are. And today, the first archetype that I'm going to be tackling is the Crumbling Patriarch. And this person, the format I'm going to follow, it's going to be themes, then key features of that archetype, then some optional facets that may or may not exist, and then finally the function that this archetype fulfills in the chronicle, in your story, in your narrative. These are going to tend to be, the presumption is that these characters are going to be longer term characters. These aren't just going to be one-offs, but hey, if you want to throw them in to just kind of rattle the players, or change things up for a session or two, you absolutely could. All right, so the Crumbling Patriarch, his themes are erosion. Well, his main theme is erosion, and a secondary theme, if it's present, would be a selfish clinging. So selfish clinging to power, selfish clinging to past glory, to treasure, to relationships, whatever, access. It really, I didn't want to just say power, because that's not necessarily the motivation or the theme that's going to be explored here, but often would be. So erosion and selfish clinging to whatever. Some of your key features here. First term. So the slow, steady erosion of dignitas. So here's my plug for Colleen McCullough, the magnificent Colleen McCullough. So she wrote a series a while back now. I think this one was about 40 years ago. This was her, this particular one's called First Men in Rome. It's the first of the series. Masters of Rome series is the overall name for the collective body. And her initial run was incredible. It's probably the best historical fiction I've read in my life, and I've read a lot of historical fiction. The only series that I would put right next to it would be James Clavell's Asian Saga. But these books are all very tight chronology and continuity, whereas the Asian Saga is sweeping. I mean, it covers centuries. So it's a different flavor. This one is multi-generational. The Masters of Rome is multi-generational. So she does an incredible job of setting the table, bringing you into the world, etc. And there's some really memorable characters that go on. And it has the benefit of largely being historically accurate. So I might even do a GM's Journey or something on these, because they have informed so much of my thinking and what's possible in long-form, quasi-historical narrative or pseudo-historical narrative, and kind of what I aim for in my own in the current campaign. And I'm just gonna shamelessly rip her explanation of Dignitas, because she's gonna be more cogent than anything I'm gonna come up with. So Dignitas, a peculiarly Roman concept, dignitas cannot be translated as the English dignity. It was a man's personal share of public standing in the community and involved his moral and ethical worth, his reputation, his entitlement to respect and proper treatment. Of all the aspects a Roman nobleman possessed, dignitas was likely to be the one he was most touchy about. To defend it, he might be prepared to go to war or into exile, to commit suicide, or to execute his wife or his son. I have elected to leave it in the text untranslated, simply as dignitas. And I have elected in the campaign to leave it largely, or to leave it untranslated and simply use dignitas. So why go to all this time and trouble to define that? This is the core element of the Crumbling Patriarch. He started off with quite a bit of dignitas, perhaps even a spectacular amount, although he was never the best leader, and we'll get to that. And this whole time, he has just been slowly diminishing. You know, one of the Romans' favorite narratives about their leadership is the inevitable decline. They really kind of took an almost morbid pleasure in this inevitable decline, you know, as the flesh fades. So that's a hallmark of this archetype. The next is that they were once beloved, and usually with this archetype, you're also going to have, with many that are currently in his current diminished state, are willfully blind to that diminishment. Why is the beloved part important? Because if this is a character that you can't stand, you know, that the viewers are disgusted with, or that your players, and I'm going to be, a lot of this is going to be through kind of the lens of actual play, just because that's what I'm like living and breathing 24/7 now. But this also applies to just, you know, absolute home games, right? But if you have a character who is, you know, been a tyrant or a god-awful ruler or whatever, as he's diminishing, there's going to be no sense of loss. There's going to be no, you know, grappling with erosion. Really, it's just going to be an opportunity to get rid of some asshole leader, you know, some scourge in your world. So you really do want this character to function at least as this archetype. Obviously, your campaign, do as you like, but to function as this archetype, you want them to have had some level of esteem and some level of affection from the people that they are. And I don't want to get just trapped in fantasy, because this doesn't just have to, I was about to say ruled, but this could be a, you know, once great CEO. This could be a modern statesman. This could be a, you know, intrepid adventurer who went on to, you know, form a guild or a league or something. I mean, this really is a wide swath of possibility here. And anytime that you have, well, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, the key features. Anytime you have these key features, you can have it. Doesn't matter about the genre. And then, so they were a good leader, but they were never in their prime. But they were never the best leader. And this is also important, because if you have I've found it kind of you tend to have a different narrative going if you're talking about, you know, an Alexander the Great, or it's another one, Elizabeth, you know, Elizabeth the First. I call her Elizabeth the Great. I think of her as Elizabeth the Great in England. But usually when you're talking about the best of the best of leadership, you're not really going to have this crumbling dignitas. You're going to have a different situation going on, and a lot of I haven't fully analyzed exactly why that is, and I don't want to muddy up the presentation with kind of, you know, off kilter speculation on that. But there are, you know, a few things come to mind. Optionally, with this archetype, you can have a kindly exterior that is a thin veneer for personal viciousness, or cowardice, or avarice, or, you know, out of control lust, or, you know, whatever it is. Pick your poison, or it could be, you know, all of those. Oof, that'd be a character. And that can just kind of add to the as the years hit and the mask begins to crumble and slip, then you're going to have additional manifestations of these personal failings coming out, because they just can't keep up the act any longer. Another one, and this one's kind of involved, but I think this is still worthy here. So you have a scheming member of his inner circle who keeps him propped up for their own benefit, or even nefarious purposes. So this could be a spouse. This could be the prototypical royal vizier. This could even be a foreign agent who's been tasked with undermining the city that they preside over, or the order they preside over, or the civilization that they preside over as is appropriate. And the longer that they keep this fading leader, this fading, ever more ineffectual leader in power, the more damage they actually do to their group. And that can be a ploy by a sophisticated enemy group, and kind of biding their time and waiting for a critical moment, perhaps. So why would you put this character into your chronicle, or this archetype into your chronicle? So you can use it as to symbolize an entire nation or an entire empire in decline. And it can be a really sometimes in gaming it's difficult to get for abstractions to really hit home emotionally. But if you have a character that they know and that they've interacted with, and even had to get around as a kind of quasi antagonist, or has been an ally to them in a long running campaign, but is just really kind of degrading as the campaign rolls on, then it brings it into a lot sharper focus, this feeling of decline. You can make it clear that the authorities, through this crumbling patriarch, this crumbling leader, you can make it clear that the authorities aren't going to solve your problems, can't solve your problems, won't, for whatever reason. Or worse, that the system that they head and the preside over is actually complicit in whatever issue is going on, or issues are going on in the chronicle. This can be anything from military issues, political issues, even spiritual issues, depending. But essentially, they are aiding and abetting whatever the problem is. And then finally, having this character that, especially if the PCs are well disposed toward him, and I keep using he. The dynamics I find do change somewhat if you have a matriarch. Like, you can't just one-to-one gender swap them for a host of reasons. Certainly you can have obviously, and absolutely can have a crumbling matriarch as well. It's probably different enough though that I would want to tackle that separately. But if you have this leader who the players have interacted with and who's kindly disposed to them, and vice versa, and then you see them just failing, and you see them unable to meet the moment. Maybe they really do. Maybe they're really trying, but they don't have it in them, or any of these other things. Maybe they never really were that person, and you're finding out that they've been this vicious, scheming bastard the entire time, still diminished and still not as competent as they were, but just kind of devoid of moral fiber, largely or wholly. Then it can really bring home the sense of the walls closing in, that the players ratcheting up the desperation that's already in the campaign, or generating it for the first time if it hasn't been there before. All right, so if you have any questions about the crumbling patriarch archetype and how they might be used, and why and so forth, or think that my analysis is completely off and I've missed the mark, then please let me know, and let the conversation begin. All right, y'all, in your journey out there, stay safe and stay curious. Thank you so much. Vale.